How is it going, everyone? It's Caleb here, and today we are going to be talking about another video game on the Xbox Series X. Today, we are going to be talking about Tamashii. Tamashii is a puzzle platformer that is one of those platforming games that you play that basically wants you to die over and over again. You're going to die a lot in this game. It's kind of one of those games where it's trial and error. You do things until you figure out the correct way to, get things done. And you're going to die a lot in the process. Everything is a one-hit kill. If you get hit by something, you're going to die. The only time it's not a one-hit kill is very, very late in the game towards like an end game scenario, but there's only like one little stage that's not a one-hit kill. But everything until then is a one-hit kill, so it is very much trial and error. And to be honest with you, I'm not a huge fan of games like that. I kind of went into this game a little bit blind. I just saw the pictures of it, and I thought the pictures looked really cool, so I decided to play it just based off of the screenshots alone. And I do still think that the art style looks fantastic. I love the art style of this game. It's very creepy. I like the black and white look of all of it. It's like a lot of black, white, and red, and green as well, and it's just a really nice just color palette that they used for this game, and I really like that stuff. And I think a lot of the character designs and monster designs are pretty interesting. I think that the actual mechanics of this game work pretty well. I didn't really have too many problems with mechanics. And a lot of the puzzles, they're pretty simple. They're not overcomplicated, which is pretty nice. You can pretty much figure out all of them. I never had a single issue with any of the puzzles in this game. And there's a little bit of choice. You do get some dialogue options, and you get to talk basically and say, a few different options with the dialogue. I don't know if it actually changes the story or not, but you do have some different options. And you also have the option to, at the end of every level, to take a hard route or an easy route. And depending on which route you take, you will be rewarded this, stone at the end of each one. There's, different element stones, and depending on if you take the hard one, then you'll get an element stone, or if you take the easy one, you won't get an element stone, but you don't have to deal with the harder puzzle and stuff like that. So they do give you a little bit of a choice, which is kind of interesting. The actual gameplay and the actual game itself is very odd. There's a lot of occult stuff kind of going on. And I have to be honest, I wasn't blown away with the story. The story did feel kind of generic with these type of indie horror games. It kind of felt like the whole, I'm 14 and this is deep kind of meme. So I wasn't a huge fan of it. It's what you expect. You're being manipulated by a character that you think is, good and on your side, and it turns out it's not. And it's very generic, and it just is okay. But overall, I think the main thing that you're looking for at this game is the actual gameplay, and at least the gameplay is pretty fun. Even though I'm not someone who enjoys this type of, dying over and over style platformer, these very precise platformers, these precision platformers, even though I'm someone who doesn't really enjoy that, I do think they did a pretty good job with it still. The fact that I was still able to play this and still have some enjoyment tells me that they did a good job with that, because most of these precision platformers I would not even put up with. But it definitely is doable. Every level is doable. Every level you can definitely finish. It may take you some time to figure out the puzzles, but once you figure them out, I think you'll actually enjoy them, because there's definitely some odd stuff that you do in this game, because you have these things called clones. And these clones you can place in different areas to activate switches and activate different blocks to stand on, and you can make blocks disappear using these clones. And it just basically helps you exit each stage, and it's really interesting how it works, and I really like using these clones. You can use 3 at a time. Interestingly enough, during the boss phases, you actually have to use these clones as well. You have to use these clones to activate these little, turret type things. There's these little, they look like pinchers. I don't know what they're supposed to be, but they look like pinchers. And you can set your clone in there, and that's usually how you open doors to get out of the level. But if you put a clone in there during the boss fights, they'll actually start launching energy balls at the actual enemy, at the boss, and they'll start doing damage to the boss. So that was kind of interesting. And I thought it was unique and different, and you're trying to solve puzzles while fighting the boss. So I kind of like that. That was actually pretty different. I hadn't really seen that done that well before. So I was pretty impressed with that. And I do also like a lot of the stages where you are running away from the boss. There's a lot of kind of just running stages where the boss is chasing you and you're just trying to escape its clutches. So those are actually pretty fun too. And one thing that kind of surprised me is towards the end of the game, it did a complete flip. And I was kind of talking about how it's pretty much a precision platformer for the most part, and you get one hit and you're done. However, one stage in particular at the end of the game turns into a shooter game. It turns into a shoot 'em up. It literally turns into a bullet hell style shoot 'em up on one of the final levels, and you get to just shoot beams out of your character. You have like angel wings that you're flying with and stuff like that, and you're taking on a boss, and like you're taking on each part of the boss at, and as you hurt the boss, different parts of its body start disappearing and stuff, and actually it's pretty cool. I actually really like that stuff, so that was kind of neat. I saw people complaining about the jump scares in this game, and I saw a couple of the jump scares in it, and I gotta be honest, they didn't really bother me. I actually kind of wish there was more, and the reason why that is because I feel like it would have gave this game just a little bit more of an identity of its own. I did actually like the jump scares. I thought that they added to the creepiness of the game, especially because they were very unexpected, especially in this kind of like 2D platforming game. So it didn't really bother me. And the thing about jump scares is that a lot of people view them as negatives, but jump scares themselves are not negative. It all depends on how you implement them. If it's like if you're watching a movie and it's just like someone sneaks up behind another person and they turn around and they get shocked, and then it plays like a loud piano noise and it's just like someone they know, yeah, that's a bad use of a jump scare. But if it's an actual monster, or if it's an actual creepy setting where things are a bit too calm and then something just happens out of nowhere, that is actually a pretty good use of a jump scare, and I think that this game at least did that pretty well. And I do think that it could have used more just to set itself apart from other indie horror games. Probably the last thing I'll say about this game is that while I did enjoy the graphic style of this game, and I did enjoy the gameplay more than I expected to, the one thing I will say is that this game does kind of lack its own identity. It doesn't really feel like it does anything different compared to a lot of the other horror games in terms of its actual like setting, in terms of its actual like background designs, and like a lot of the imagery that you see. That stuff feels pretty generic, I will say. It feels like your average indie horror game, where it's just like, here's some spooky imagery, it's constantly, you're seeing the same statues over and over again, you're seeing the same symbols over and over again, and it comes off a little bit generic, because every indie horror game uses the same exact stuff. I think that it would have been nice to have some of its own unique imagery. I feel like it was kind of lacking in that department. Make your own creepy stuff, do your own creepy thing, because this does kind of feel like basically every other indie horror game in terms of its scenery, so that could have been better. But overall, I still did enjoy my time with this game. I don't think it's an amazing game, but I do think that it is a good game, and it's not a very expensive game either. You can pick it up on Steam for about $5, and you can pick it up on Xbox for $12, and I actually got it on sale one time. I don't remember how much I picked it up for, but I got less than the actual selling price. So I enjoyed this game for what it is. It's not perfect, but I did have fun with it. More fun than I expected to once I figured out that it was a precision platformer. I think that while it is a precision platformer, it does a good job representing the genre. It makes it feel like the genre is actually somewhat accessible and somewhat enjoyable, because most of the time, like I said, I would not put up with a precision platformer, but this one actually controlled very well. The puzzles were very fun, and overall, I really did like the graphical style of this game. So go check out Tamashii on the Xbox Series X or any of the other systems it's on, and I'll talk to you in the next one. You have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.